CIG has added what they say is the final variant of the Drake Cutter, the Rambler. Pitched as the premium Explorer variant, today we're going to go over the features of the ship, go over the good, the bad, and what can be done to fix it. Because, well, spoiler alert, it's going to need some love. But before we dive into that, let's go over just a quick history of the Cutter. It was originally released at IAE 2952. It features the known and loved aesthetics of Drake, but in a starter ship format, with its 4 SCU of cargo space, middle of the road speed and maneuverability, and at the time, an insanely large fuel tank. It became an instant fan favorite. To me, it's the sprinter van of the Star Citizen universe, and personally to me it also sort of looks like the Razor Crest, which, you know, Mandalorian, pretty cool. But anyway, back to that fuel tank. The fuel tank was insanely large at the time. It had a quant tank that had 6,000 units of quantanium in it, which is insane. It meant you could spend so much time out in the verse doing missions and never needing to worry about refueling, which, you know, kind of made this ship for the player base. The fuel tank was then patched down to 1,960 units of quantanium, which, yes, brings it into line with the rest of the starter ships, but was a severe hit to the utility of the original Cutter. But that's where this new variant comes into play, or at least that's the pitch from CIG. The Cutter Rambler is effectively the hashtag van life of the Drake Cutter family. With an expanded habitation area, the Rambler fixes the awkward positioning of the shower in both the base and scout variants. It also adds a small table, a food machine, a suit locker, additional weapons rack, and even a small jump seat in that habitation area. And all of this comes at the cost, though, of the rear cargo area, which is one now significantly smaller and limited to 2 SCU of cargo. But that's not the only changes that have come with the Rambler, because of course there are some new exterior changes that help kind of convey this new hashtag van life living experience on the outside. And while we'll go ahead and start from the rear of the ship and move to the forward with all of the changes, the first thing is the new rear tail fins. They've been made these massive flaps, and they kind of look like large stabilizers with both a large horizontal plane and then an even larger vertical plane. To me, this reads as basically a ship that looks like it would be incredibly stable with this new rear stabilizer setup. Just the way that the new stabilizers has that massive vertical planes, it looks like something that you could maybe bump and rub and kind of get a little bit of damage on, but it would still work aerodynamically and get you through any sort of rough patch. Then on the dorsal side of the ship, i.e. the top of the ship, it's received a roof rack that contains the supposed extra fuel tank for your long expeditions. Then we get to the engine nacelles, which have also received several changes, including smaller engines for supposed higher efficiency. And my favorite part is these little shark fins that are on either side that look like they would help condition the air and, you know, kind of help with laminar flow over the engine nacelles. Like, I love the little shark fins that have been added here, but my favorite addition overall to these new external changes has to be the roll cage and headlamps added to the front of the vessel. It straight up reminds me of one of those like lifted sprinter vans, which, you know, checks out for the hashtag van life that we are going with. And all of those things together make this my favorite looking cutter in the family. But sadly, looks aren't the only things that matter. Function is also key. That's kind of the Drake brand, And that's unfortunately where this ship is a letdown. First, let's go ahead and talk its most egregious flaw. In the reveal video, CIG says this:
we want to make sure there was visually some differences on the exterior. So we've got the kind of visual only differences, such as the kind of like the modify rear section. We've also got the kind of more functional stuff. So on top, it's got the extended fuel tank. Visually, we kind of lent into the idea of having your Winnebago or your camper van or whatever it might be, and it's got this kind of like roof rack aesthetic, but it's actually kind of stores all the extra kind of fuel for the extended fuel tanks.
And with words like that, you'd expect the vessel would have some kind of improved fuel tank. For those who want me to break it down, I think the key thing is, so we've got this kind of visual only difference, such as the kind of modified rear section, period. And then he goes into, we've also got the kind of more functional stuff. So on the top, it's got an extended fuel tank. And to me, that makes it sound like, well, this ship is going to have an extended range, something that sets it apart, that helps gameplay wise set itself apart from its other two variants. And this is where we kind of run into an issue. And personally, listen, I come from playing World of Warships, and I am used to a company giving us something, promising us something, selling us something, and then it being a little overtuned, them knocking it back, and then a couple months later selling us something similar, with the, fixing that new problem. And that's kind of what I expected here. I was like, oh, okay, so they've taken the original Cutter and, they took away what a lot of people really loved about it. They took away that fuel tank, and now they're going to sell it to us for an extra $5. And you know what? I was okay with that. But unfortunately, it doesn't do that. Actually, the Rambler ends up sharing the same fuel tank and range with the base variant and also the Scout variant. So I don't know what advantage this model is supposed to serve, right? Like, if you look at it this way, the base has the same stats and 4 SEU of cargo. The Scout variant has size 2 cooling and power components at the cost of 2 SEU of cargo and an, as of now, unfunctional scanning station, and, let's be clear, a very dope spoiler. So, points in that direction. And then we get to the Rambler, which has 2 SEU of cargo space, but for what advantage? It's not like the food machine works and will help you stay out in the verse longer right now. You still have to pack your own snacks. The extra gun rack that it has, not really that useful. The suit locker has really no gameplay advantage at this moment. So what are we doing here, CIG? And look, I know CIG likes to sell those little bonus things for down the road, right? They like to kind of sell us some unfinished gameplay loops, but they kind of committed to not doing that as much recently. And for them to pitch this as a premium starter ship that is just straight disadvantages compared to its cheaper normal variant does make it a little bit of a letdown. So to me, here are my best ways to fix the Drake Cutter Rambler. I think the easiest thing that they could do is go in there and give it a larger fuel range. And, that is pretty simple. They just got to go in there, edit that .yaml file, edit that .json, and stick it into the game. Not too hard. I feel like it may be an afternoon of work for a seasoned dev. Nothing really to have to worry about with just, expanding one number within the stats table. Cool. The other two options would require some sort of redesign. My first concept for the better hashtag van life takes inspiration from the Rivian delivery van. I know, right? So if you're not aware, Rivian is an electric car company. They have two models of consumer vehicles, a truck and a pickup truck. And then they've partnered with Amazon to design a delivery van, which they are now selling to any fleet. But the way they design the delivery van is they've put it into sections that allow the user or the company to choose how long the delivery van is. And, you know, as we were talking about earlier, the Cutter is the delivery van of the verse, it feels like. So give us the ability, or with the Rambler variant, add a little bit of length onto the end of the Cutter. You know, make this the 737 800 Max variant of the Cutter. Give it that extra length. We already have the stabilizers on here that would be able to kind of convey that idea of, oh, it's a little bit more stable. They beefed up the rear stabilizers to help with the added length. I think that could be one option that they pursue, and this additional length would then go into adding a little bit more room in the cargo, making it so that there's a reason to spend that little bit extra money on the Rambler variant, just making it a slightly longer and larger version of it. The other option, I think, is they could do an interior redesign. And I know what you're saying, Tommy, they already did an interior redesign. Yeah, but they did a shitty job of it. What I would love to see happen is they remove the front bulkhead from the vessel. This would bring the pilot seat into the living area, and then they could bring the rest of the living area a bit forward while maintaining all of the supposed features of the living area, and then restoring the cargo bay to its base variant size. And the way I want to think about this is, one of the big features in like van life vans can be that the front driver and passenger seats swivel to then become furniture within the living space. And we sort of already have that, right? You walk in and the chair is already facing the rest of the living space, and then it goes up onto that platform for you then to pilot it. If they remove that forward bulkhead, it would then kind of bring it into the living space, making that front pilot seat also the chair that you maybe are able to eat from or do some, you know, the general living tasks. And then you're getting sort of extra utility out of the chair, which kind of feels more Drake in a way, right? Like, we already have a chair. Why do we need to add a bench with a desk when we could just be using the pilot seat, because it's already there? But I understand, because interiors are a lot of effort to redo, and you know, they just made this one, so they probably wouldn't be going for another pass. So with all of that said, the Rambler currently costs $50, which is $5 more than the base. But for me, there's no really upside. I wouldn't recommend buying the Rambler unless you're here in the early days and are able to pick it up on a war bond to get that cheap lifetime insurance that you're then able to carry forward on a different ship through an upgrade chain. If you're not able to do that, I really don't see the purpose of the Rambler as of now, and overall just wouldn't recommend picking it up. So with all that said, what do you think? Is the Rambler any good? Did I miss something incredibly important? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, if you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. See ya.